Okay, Damon Millard, welcome to Brisbane City. You are involved in player welfare. Talk us through your experiences in a whole variety of sports and in your working life as well, as to how you might be able to apply that to Brisbane City.
Yeah, so I've been involved in the sort of welfare sector for a long time. Done a lot of pastoring in churches for about 10 years and done school chaplaincy, high school chaplaincy. And so I've been working in that, I think probably that crucial age of where kids are going through the sort of getting serious in their schooling and deciding what they want to do for their future. And so I've done that for a long time, and coupling that now with my passion for sport, which is really good, really exciting for me for the future. So
it's a passion of sport that's been born out for your family connections, right? You've got family playing AFL, rugby union, rugby league.
Yeah. I've got a very big history of sport. I'm probably a bit of a failure in my family, the lofty standards of my family. But yeah, so I've got a couple of cousins down in Melbourne playing, and I've had cousins who've gone overseas and played through Europe with rugby union. One that played for the Reds, and so I've got a big sort of history. And I sort of didn't get to play. I played football, so I didn't get to play too many other sports. Because I've played football pretty full on, but yeah, like I see the pitfalls of it constantly. I've seen the ups and downs of it. I've seen, family members going through injury and setbacks, and so I just see that side of things really needs to be addressed by clubs. The welfare of the players is so important, not only just for them to be successful in life, but to be successful on the pitch, because if they've got those things hanging over their heads, it just really stops them from fulfilling their football destiny, really, because it's just stuff that just brings them down. It affects their performance, and I think that if we can have healthy off the pitch, we'll see some really good results on the pitch.
Because you'll be working initially with sort of players at that later teenage years here at City, of course, with an aim to sort of progress that all the way down. Yep. Because this is obviously such a challenging time for people's in their lives in general, not just in terms of how they're sort of progressing on the football field. It's schooling, it's trying to get a job, it's everything surrounding that. And as you mentioned, there's so many pitfalls in even amateur sport, and taking that jump into professional sport can be a very difficult time.
It's a very, very crucial time in a young man's life, especially too if we're moving into women's football and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's overhanging in their life constantly. They've got so many pressures and external pressures, internal pressures, and they're trying to deal with those things. For me, the short term, working in this welfare and starting this program up, that will be a big focus, because they are probably the most critical ages where they're coming through, they're deciding whether football is going to be something that they're going to chase after. They're trying to manage that with their schooling and what they're going to do with their future career path, and there's lots of relationships stuff that goes on, and the pitfalls of social media, all these sort of things. And I think if we can use that as a focus area, that 16s, 18s, 20s, as they're coming into the first team football, if we can get their life on track, I think that their football will just follow, and they'll be ready when they get up to that highest level, and then beyond. As the club looks to make a pitch for the A-League, we can be a real front runner as far as player welfare, because there is a lack of that wellbeing support for our athletes in Australia.
You mentioned that it is such a huge area, and it's such an important aspect of playing. And you hear about the pitfalls of players who, as they've gone through their career, then once the crowd stops singing your name, these players start to spiral out of control. And we see that across all sports and all walks of life. It's no different if you've had a great schoolboy career and then injury can affect you, or lack of form, or perhaps you just don't have what it takes. But it's such a huge area, and not many clubs seem to be looking after the welfare of players. And it doesn't just affect the top, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, definitely. When you look at it, it's quite concerning. The lack of support for players. There's a lack of support for players that are currently in their field, and they're playing and they're applying their trade. But then there's very little support after playing, and for me, proactively, there's nothing leading up to it. So a lot of, like, for instance, my cousin was drafted as a 17-year-old straight out of school, never had any real job other than a professional football player. So for that, you know, there's a lot of issues that come with that. You know, you come straight out of high school and you're being told where to be, what to do. You know, everything's put in front of you, and then what happens when that stops, and what happens when you're injured and you push down the line and you've got to rebuild again. There's so many issues that come along with that, and I think that if we can have people in our clubs that are sounding boards and people that these guys can lean on, then it's only going to be a better results for us as a football club. So yeah,
I guess it's so important for a club that has A-League aspirations to be looking at the player welfare as a whole encompassing thing, because as well as creating players, as a club, Brisbane City hoping to create sort of well presented young men and young girls. So it all ties in, doesn't it?
It all ties in, and as we've investigated this, there is a lack of welfare going on even within football in Australia, and as far as we see, when we first started, we wanted to try and get up to a certain standard so that it would work towards a A-League pitch. But now we're seeing that already as we're establishing this program, we're actually front runners within Australian football, and that's exciting, and we hope that this can be a program that can be rolled out right through the club, eventually being proactive and not just reactive, and that this can be something that the Football Federation Australia can take and roll out amongst all their clubs, and as a result of that, we'll see better rounded people, adults, as they come through the system and beyond, and it'll only be good for football in Australia.
It was great news for the players here, and hopefully it'll be great news for players overall in Australia. Thanks so much
no problem,
for joining us, Damon. We're looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Awesome.